Welcome to the first live Pro Tech Show. Unless, of course, you're watching the replay, in which case, let me know in the comments. We should have a good one for you here today, so it's a good way to kick off. Now, I'm assuming some of my regulars have noticed this, but about 9 months ago, there was an event happened. IBM-owned Red Hat pulled the plug on CentOS. And if that doesn't mean anything to you, well, CentOS is used by a lot of companies, a lot of research labs, and a fair old chunk of the internet as well. So pulling the plug has some repercussions. The comment section on that press release was a wall of anger and disappointment, apart from one post. There was one post that stood out amongst the others. It was by a guy called Greg, who basically said, maybe not. I founded CentOS and I think I might make a new one. Anyone in? And yeah, a few people were in. Hi, Greg. You should be able to see and speak to us now.
Hi, Andrew.
Hi, how's it doing over there? Looks shiny and morning.
It is. I'm just finishing up my coffee. And I like how you said it. I like how you said it better. I wish the blog. I wish I would have commented on the blog post and as eloquently as you said it.
Well, it got the job. We got you built the team quite quickly, and Rocky Linux is out. So mission accomplished. I have a question though. Question is why? Now I understand the need to fill a gap. I understand that CentOS left a big gap and having a new distribution to fill it was sorely needed. But why did you personally choose to do it? Because you've already given the world CentOS. You could have sat back and left it to someone else, but you decided to roll up your sleeves and start all over again. What was your motivation?
Oh my goodness. It's a great question. There's a lot of kind of personal background kind of associated with it. So when we did CentOS, I think we did a lot of things right. We nailed a bunch of things. But I think there were some things that we didn't get quite so right. And personally, I always love kind of working in the operating system. I've been interested in Linux and interested in distributions of Linux since the mid 90s. And that was always kind of my goal in terms of where I was going and what I was doing and how to get there. And so I always had a passion to this. Before doing CentOS, I created Chaos Linux, which is a community RPM-based distribution of Linux. And that kind of kicked out or spawned CentOS. But as I said, there were some things we did right and some things I think we could have done better. And I had a lot of experience that I felt would be really useful for this. But most importantly, I really wanted to get back into the distribution. I really wanted to build this again and take all of the things that I did right, do that again, and take all the things that I did wrong and try to fix them. And so you could say there was a little bit of a chip on my shoulder as well with the announcement that something that I created was then end of lifed. And I'm saying it was end of life, even though that's arguable because it changed life. It metamorphosized, in a matter of speaking. It's no longer what we set out to do. And what we set out to do was to solve some critical problems and critical needs that a lot of people in the world and in the community had. And it's no longer doing that. And so I got to say, between us and the 50 billion people that are watching this, there was a little bit of a chip on my shoulder. I wanted to come back and bring it back to what it was always meant to be and fix that.
Someone messed with your baby, didn't they, essentially?
You could put it that way.
Well, like I said, you attracted a lot of people and you've got a whole team built. So I'm going to invite a few more of them into this chat here to talk to us. And I met a few of you, but not all of you. So anyone want to do a few introductions? Let us know who you are and what you do. Shall we start with Mustafa? If you want to go first, just because you're the first one on my screen.
Hello, everyone. I am a software engineer over at CIQ. I am also a release engineering lead over at RESF, and I mainly work on import, build, and packaging tools.
Cool. Todd, you're up next. You're on mute at the minute, Todd. Let me see if I can unmute you.
There we go. I got you.
There we go.
Good morning, Andrew. Thank you for hosting. Where are you located? I'm just curious.
I'm over in Northeast England, so it's starting to get dark now. It's
Okay.
just gone 5 o'clock.
Excellent. Well, good morning. Todd Brule, I'm Vice President of Sales here at CIQ.
Cool. Robert, you're next.
Hey, thank you, Andrew. My name's Robert Adolph, and I'm a Chief Product Officer, and had some crazy ideas with Greg when we started all this.
I'd love to hear them. And Amy, last but not least.
Hi, my name's Amy. I've been with the support team for about a month now, but I'm a longtime Linux user going back to the 90s. And part of the reason why I came here is because of the impact Greg had on my life with CentOS. And so I'm just really excited to be here supporting our customers and helping change other people's lives.
Wow, I should have got you to do the intro for Greg. That's a good one. So there's the letters CIQ have been mentioned. So I think it's useful for us to understand it a bit better. The first I heard of CIQ or Ctrl IQ was I did a video and it mentioned Rocky Linux in it. And it said that, oh, they don't have any support yet, but it'll be interesting to see if that comes along. And Brim immediately sent me a message going, 2 weeks, just wait 2 weeks. And he told me to Google CIQ, which I did. And my initial reaction was, oh, this must be some random managed service provider that specializes in Linux and is some kind of sponsorship with Rocky. And then I looked at the people involved, CEO Greg Kurtzer. Suddenly realized this is not just a random third party. There's a lot more going on here. So could you tell us about the relationship between Rocky Linux and CIQ and how does that work?
I'm happy to take it, but I also don't want to hog the mic. Robert, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, absolutely. So, one of the things Greg learned through all this was, we did not want, Rocky Linux to be part of CIQ. So it was definitely something that is outside of and separate completely for individuals as well as enterprises, etc. And we want to build that community that way. CIQ is actually a software development team and support team that is building not just OSs, containers, orchestration solutions built around performance workflows. So we are separate completely, but very dedicated to the project.
Okay, guys in the chat there, I can see a few of you saying hello. If you have any questions for the team, feel free to drop them in the chat there. Can't promise we'll answer all of them, but if you don't ask, we definitely won't answer it. So go ahead and drop anything in there. I've got a few that were sent through ahead of time that we can chat through as well. So going back to you, Greg, for a minute, I'm going to force you to hog the mic for a little bit. You mentioned that there was a few things you would like to do differently this time. There's stuff you've learned when you built CentOS and the journey you went through that, and you've learned things, or some things went well, some things that didn't go well. If you were to condense that all down to what is the one biggest change you've made when doing Rocky versus CentOS, what would that one biggest thing be?
So the one biggest thing is really to create it to be more of a community. So CentOS started off really, as I said, kind of as an offspring of Chaos Linux. But what ended up happening was, we didn't have CI/CD, we didn't have, cloud wasn't huge at that point, or at least as big as it is now. And there was a lot of technology that was kind of missing from how do you build an operating system. So what we did is, well, each one of the developers basically grabbed their laptop and we started building packages and we started assembling the packages. And as we did that, and as we built these packages and assembled these packages, we wanted to push these to mirrors and push them live. And we did it from our workstations. We did it from our laptops, which now means that the security umbrella that we have to manage is basically confined within the circle of trust of the individuals doing that work. And that meant that there's the way you manage now security is you keep those circles very small. So the culture of CentOS was always very small as a development team. There was probably about 5 plus or minus maybe 2 or 3 people pretty much along the entire CentOS journey in terms of core developers, people actually maintaining the operating system. And this is why you saw things like, and probably if you've been using CentOS for a while, you probably recall There's a number of times in which, CentOS releases were delayed, or, it just took a while to get a new point release out or a new major version out. And it's because this small team of individuals have been they've been floored with the amount of work that they had coming at them. And they were doing this not as their primary job. They were doing this as their alternative jobs, right? Their weekend and evening jobs, which meant that this poor team was completely overburdened and overloaded for about a decade or so, until Red Hat actually hired them. But what would I do different? I wanted to first build up the infrastructure necessary so we can actually build a proper community, so we can actually expand beyond just a few developers. And that infrastructure is really key, because it allows us to do things like allow other people to come into play, to become developers, become contributors, without compromising the security or the integrity of the resulting project. And that was what we spent the entire beginning of the project doing, not building an operating system, but building an infrastructure. And it took us about 4 months to build the infrastructure. What we did initially is we replicated what Fedora is using and what we believe Red Hat is using, so we can get the closest result to what they have, and then basically leverage that and build off of that for our own needs. And again, it took about 4 months to do that. It took about 2 months then from there to throw the operating system at that infrastructure and actually get the operating system built. And then 1 month of testing, and 7 months later, I think that's 7 if I did my math right in my head, 7 months-ish later, we basically had a GA release.
Cool. So just to clarify, you're not building it on your laptop anymore.
And another little known fact is on a laptop, I'm predominantly a Mac user. So early versions of CentOS were actually done on a Mac.
Wow. Do we have to kick him off the stream now, guys, for admitting that?
They already give me enough crap about it.
I'm sure they do. I think we've had a question come through, and it's very much crystal ball time. So Mystic Knight wants to know if anyone's going to make a prediction on how many servers are going to migrate from CentOS to Rocky over the next year. So who's got a crystal ball to try and answer that one?
Well, I've got some data on this, but it's just it's a little bit of actual data, a little bit of a swag, and then we can take a bigger swag. And I'm not sure if I can say this, so censor me if I. But a swag to me is a scientific wild ass guess. So I'm going to take a swag at this.
Okay, I can work with that.
So we've had about I think it's about 700,000 downloads from our tier 0 mirror, if I remember the numbers right, at this point. And we've been released now for what has it been, Mustafa, Robert, about 3 months or so? I think it's been somewhere around there. So that's our tier 0 mirror. That's our kind of like top prime, CDN mirror. Now we have about 100 tier 1 mirrors. We don't have visibility into how many downloads that those tier 1 mirrors are doing, but based on some conversations we've had with some of the hosts of these mirrors, we think that our tier 0 mirror is basically satisfying roughly 50% of the downloads, a lot. Then the tier 1 mirrors are basically doing the other 50%. So if we've got, let's just say, 750,000-ish downloads from our tier 0, means we've got about 1.5 million downloads in about, 3 months. For each download, in terms of conversations I've had personally with enterprises and individuals, each download is obviously doing at least one install, but most of them are doing multiple installs per download. So I think it's a pretty safe assumption to say we're probably over 1.5 million installs. We're probably over 2 million installs. We're probably over 3 million installs at this point, but it's hard. This is where the swag comes in. It's a guess. Can't tell you exactly, but that's in 3 months. Now, if you look at the graph of downloads, of course, there was a gigantic spike on release. And every time there's a press release or an event like this, we get another spike. But basically, what ends up happening is it kind of is going to it's tapering off and asymptoting to something that's going to be very a much more sustainable kind of longer term rate. Can't tell you exactly what that rate is because we're still super high. We're still getting we're still coming down from the major spike, but it's still it's massive in terms of the number of users we have. And now I'm going to approach it from the other direction. At some point, CentOS was serving and installed on approximately 50% of the enterprise servers that were reachable via Netcraft. And I remember a Netcraft survey being done a long time ago where CentOS was one of the primary dominant operating systems. I went back, tried to find these things, couldn't find them. I even went back through the archive trying to find these things and couldn't find them.
I had a look as well, couldn't find it.
I know it was there. I know it was there. But here's what's happened over the past, I'd say 5-ish years since then. Is Red Hat took over CentOS, and I don't mean to imply that had a negative effect on it, but in combination with that, Canonical was shifting their business focus significantly, and they did a fantastic job pivoting from laptops and workstations to cloud and enterprise. And I got to hand it to them. They did a really good job on this. And as a result, Canonical and Ubuntu usage started coming up and went up quite a bit. The last survey that I saw was about 20 to 25% of enterprise and cloud resources is running CentOS today. About 20 to 25%. I think it's fair to say at this point that that Rocky's going to take over for a large percentage of that. Can't say exactly what percent, but I think that's fair to say. I also think it's fair to say that and I'm going to roughly call this, I know I talk a lot. I just realized how long I've been talking. I'm sorry. But I think it's fair to say that if we consider enterprise servers, or rather the enterprise Linux standard, which is what previously was Red Hat Enterprise Linux. We look at this as now all of a sudden we have an enterprise Linux standard, right? Red Hat is with CentOS Stream, Red Hat pushed their development behind closed doors into the community, which is a good thing. Now we kind of have this like enterprise Linux standard up there. And we've got many derivatives of that enterprise Linux standard. We've got obviously Rocky, we got Red Hat Enterprise Linux, we got Oracle, we got Alma. There's a bunch of them out there. There's Navy, there's I know I'm forgetting at least a couple of them at this point, but there's a bunch of these is what I'm saying. But if we count all of these as together, because they all should be compatible with each other, we count all of these together as the enterprise Linux standard. I think together, all of the open source projects behind this, Red Hat and everybody, if we work together, I think we can actually start moving back towards 50%. But we have to work together.
That would be very interesting to see. Yeah, I mean, 20% is still a good old chunk considering the size of the internet, but yeah, I'll be interested to see if that climbs up higher. I'm going to get my crystal ball out and make another prediction. I think you're going to see a big spike in about 2.5 months, because I think there's going to be a lot of admins when that December deadline comes up are going to suddenly panic and start installing things. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out if the graph suddenly shoots up again. I think there'll be a few panicked installs on New Year's Eve. All seems to be the way. We have another question from, again, Mystic Knight, which I think will lead into another interesting little chat. So he's asking about the relation between Rocky and other tech supported by CIQ. So if I can ask you to answer that, but then also tell us a little bit more about the support CIQ offers for Rocky as well, because it's interesting to know, because I think you're doing something a little bit different than most people. You're not just aiming for large enterprises, are you? You're looking to help the individual as well. So who's going to take this one then?
Andrew, you pick someone.
I pick someone. I'm going to pick on Todd. Todd, you're on mute again. Okay, maybe we'll pick on someone else while Todd sorts out his audio. Oh, there we go. Nope.
Andrew, I can jump in if you want.
There we go.
No worries. So in the beginning, and our theory on this was we wanted to support people, right? So whether that was a startup with one Linux admin that just needed help, or a hobbyist at home, to some of the largest institutions in the world, right? So, and then the other piece to that is, you go to some of these large institutions, there's all the way from complete maintainers of the kernel themselves, all the way down to somebody that just came out of college themselves, right? So we wanted to have a mechanism to do that. Obviously, we also have a traditional mechanism for folks as well, but we really wanted to focus on people, and a lot of our model is built around how many people actually need support, not necessarily the number of servers and sockets that are out there. And Amy's actually on our support team, and maybe could give you a little bit of her perspective as well.
It's something I haven't seen done before. When it was explained to me, I had a moment where I was like, wow, this is actually really cool. And I think people are going to be interested in this. Essentially, you get support through a person, and not how many machines are responsible for. I mean, in the age of cloud, I mean, how many machines are you responsible for? They come up, they come down. The existing model in some cases doesn't make sense for people. For some people, it totally does, and we support that as well. But this is a new model, and we're seeing what people think about it. So far, the response has been really good, and I'm excited about it personally. I wish that this was something that had been offered to me in the past.
Now that my mic's working, I'll add one more thing. Sorry about that, guys. So, I mean, I just started September 1st, but, we were on a call with a very large media entertainment company doing a huge streaming service, one of the big ones. And they hadn't had a huge CentOS shop, thousands of nodes in different locations. And it was problematic. There were times to where, their production SLAs weren't met, that sort of thing. And just having that comfort level, for an enterprise like that that's relying on a 2-hour response time to get things done and open a ticket, get it fixed immediately. It just it brings a whole new level of support into what CentOS did not have before. So I see that as a major advantage of what CIQ is doing for support on any Linux platform.
Yeah, and Andrew, just as I'm looking at the question, Greg actually left off one part in the beginning. We were actually looking to build the next generation of high performance computing when we started off on CIQ. And CentOS was going to be a main piece of that. So it was something that mattered to us. We were asked to support CentOS as part of that stack. So when this happened, it actually affected our entire company as well, because Greg created a container solution for high performance computing, and we've been working on an orchestration solution. So we weren't just somebody that wanted to come out and support this. We're a group of software developers that are trying to innovate. This was something that affected us personally as well, right? And the customers that we were trying to serve. So, there was more to it than, just, coming out with an OS, if that makes sense.
So it pulled the rug out from under you guys as well then. So that's interesting then, because it's actually running CentOS 7 still. I've got a server in my house, so I need to upgrade that, but you can imagine why I held off on it. If I upgrade that to Rocky, can I, as an individual, if I've got a problem, I can just come and you'll help me without charging like full enterprise rates? That's an interesting way to do things. How do you set yourself up for that? Because back in a previous life, I did, Joe Public computer support. I now work for a company that does enterprise server support. It's a very different ball game, and the skills required are different. The pricing models are very different. How do you do that in a way that is affordable for your users and also sustainable for you guys?
Yeah, great question. So, we think about this a lot. So, and Amy kind of alluded to this. Every time we talk to somebody to come on our team, we kind of ask them, hey, as a user of Linux, what would you have liked? What would you want? Right. So, what we heard a lot was, hey, I want a really good capability to click and find my answer, or interact with the chat and get my answer immediately. Or I call somebody once and they answer me, right? I get to an engineer, I get to a software developer, I get to somebody that understands and has been in my spot before. So it comes down to automation, maybe some AI, some self-help that's maybe a little bit more advanced, all the way up the stack of just getting better and repeating what comes up more and more as something that people can access extremely fast. But Mustafa, and Amy might give you some perspectives from their angle as they're building this.
So I spend a lot of time on support forums just in general to see what type of problems people have. And spoiler alert, a lot of people have the same problems, right? So if you stay ahead of that and you have the data and the information required to provide good, solid answers and follow-ups, you're going to help a very large number. I'm not a statistician, but it will be very helpful to capture that information and make it available.
All right. Yeah, that's an interesting challenge. I'll be very interested to see how that goes and how it develops in the future, because it does feel like you're doing something that it's maybe not completely unique, but it's certainly different. Like, I don't know if there's anyone else who's trying to address that same scale of, massive, large media company and me messing around with the server in my house for storing my files on.
I'll add one more thing, Andrew. What Greg and Rob have done really well with the support team is that, they've done a really good job of tying a lot of, great Rocky and CentOS engineers right into our support team. So, that's, they're working in parallel together to get these, tickets open, problem solved very, very quickly. So it's not just support people that's escalating from person to person. It's, when someone calls in, they're typically getting an engineer to talk to.
That's good. So you don't have like a level one where, if someone asks you, have you tried turning it off and on again several times?
So I'd like to jump in real quick with another perspective too, which is the messaging for this is really powerful, right? Because we're not, as Amy said, we can count sockets, we can count servers, but we don't like to. It's not how we prefer to work. We prefer to just support the people, right? We don't support servers. We support people, and people are what make up the companies, right? The success of the company is 100% tied to the success of the individuals, and this brings everything right back down to the people. And when you look at how we are approaching this, to your point, Andrew, we have a wide variety of support and SLA options. One of which, for example, starts exactly out of the enterprise with an individual. And we were talking actually with several consultants a little while ago, and some people that are doing very specific things, whether it be copy, or whether it be website development, or whatever that may be. And they're single person shops, right? They're their own consultants. And they said, it would be really great if when we had a problem, I know that we can contact you, right? I don't have an escalation point, right? It's me at this company. If I can't solve a problem that I run into on a customer's, server, their web server or whatever, I don't have an escalation path, right? I'm on Google, I'm on Stack Overflow, trying to figure this sort of stuff out. It'd be really great if if I had some form of, some manner to escalate. And we're getting the exact same message now from very large IT teams at very large companies. They're like, we also need some sort of escalation path if we can't solve something. And when we're looking at this, and again, I don't want to count cloud instances. I don't want to count how many containers somebody is running, or how many servers or virtual servers somebody is running. I want to just support that person. Whatever that person is responsible for, we are responsible for. That person's success is our success. And that's how we're looking at this. It is very, very people focused and people oriented. And it also scales very nicely. Again, you not only do you have different SLAs for different levels of support, but you also, if we're supporting the individuals, a small company who may only have a few IT people versus somebody like Target or Walmart who has hundreds of IT people, the model scales. Model scales actually very well. So that's how we're approaching this. We're looking at this from a completely different perspective, and so far the response has been tremendous. It almost feels so obvious. I cannot believe this has not been done widely before.
It's an interesting way you put it about it's about the people. One of the first things I got told in my current job, which is about 15 years ago, I've been there a while, I started off on a service desk doing IT support for businesses. And my boss took me aside when I did my first on-site visit and said, the thing to remember is that it's about the people, because I can be as good technically as, it doesn't matter how good technically you are. If they don't like you, you're out. That's just how it works. Like, people don't buy, you don't get repeat business based on just technical skills. It's about the feeling you give your customers. It's how they feel about you. That's what really matters at the end of the day. And it's something that stuck with me. So that what you're saying resonates. I'm starting to get worried about this Mystic Knight guy or gal, I don't actually know, but I think they've got some access to the notes I've written down for questions to ask you, because they're asking a lot of the same things. So this one's come up about support resulting in patches. So I had a question to ask you about what you do with things like bugs, because as you support, all these installations of Rocky, there's going to be a time where you come across an issue and you realize, well, this is a bug. But it's not a Rocky bug, it's a Red Hat bug. And if we fix it, then we break that bug for bug compatibility with Red Hat. And I was wondering if CentOS Stream gave you guys some kind of opportunity to shorten that feedback loop, because that's all about, getting stuff quicker upstream. So if you find a problem, you go, I can see how to fix it, but I can't just put it into Rocky source code or I'm breaking stuff, I'm breaking that compatibility. Does Stream give you an opportunity to get that further upstream so that you can then get it back down again into Rocky and into the hands of your customers?
I know I've been talking a lot, but I just have to jump in. Yes, 100%, 1000%. CentOS used to be behind Red Hat. Red Hat was developed behind locked doors, right? We did not have insight into what is going into Red Hat, with the exception of Fedora. But Fedora was so far ahead, we didn't actually have direct insight as to what's going into Red Hat. And CentOS Stream. So CentOS was end of life. CentOS Stream was pushed in front of Red Hat, which means Red Hat Enterprise Linux is now a child of CentOS Stream. It's a very weird kind of shift from that perspective, because it used to be a child of RHEL. Now all of a sudden its child is its parent.
I wish they'd used a different name for it. It would have caused a lot less confusion.
I completely agree. As a matter of fact, I talked to several of the Red Hatters for quite a while, and we've debated over this. And they, out of the debate, I still agree with you that they could have used a different name, and it would have been more valuable to use a different name. But CentOS Stream is an incredibly valuable, positive direction for what just shifted. Because it does now, because it's in front of Red Hat Enterprise Linux, we are now a downstream child of CentOS Stream, as is Red Hat Enterprise Linux. Now, keep in mind, though, right now, Red Hat is the dominant player, putting patches and putting fixes and whatnot into CentOS Stream. But over time, we're hoping this is going to change even further, to the point where this becomes this enterprise Linux standard that I was talking about. That repository, that location, needs to become more community focused and community oriented, such that when we find bugs, we now go and we can commit them or do a merge request into the CentOS Stream Git, just like Red Hat does, just like other projects are going to be able to. This enterprise Linux standard is so tremendous in terms of what it is, what it had just pivoted, what has just happened is incredibly valuable. If you were to have taken the cards and just, this is the hand we had last year, and for the previous 16 years, what we just did is we just got redealt an entirely new hand, and it is so much better than where everybody was last year. It is a better move. Everything is landing, in my mind, in a better spot. The dominant compatible free alternatives to Red Hat Enterprise Linux are now no longer being maintained by Red Hat. They're being maintained outside of Red Hat, which means Red Hat does not have to manage a conflict of interest situation where it was basically they were giving away something that competed with their commercial product. I want them to go make money on their commercial product, but not at the expense of the free product. And when you have that all in one company, you do have to manage a conflict of interest. Going back just to the questions, that particular question from Mystic Knight, we would be pushing patches and suggestions back up into that Git. And my goal, my hope in this is that would trigger conversations, that would trigger discussions from not only from us in the community, but from Red Hat, from Oracle, from Alma, from everybody. We can now all go into those discussions. We can actually now make decisions collaboratively. And this enterprise Linux standard will then again start to increase in terms of prevalence, in terms of domination, even, right? I don't mean domination in a negative way. It's that will help other people leverage it. And I think it will increase the amount of utilization well beyond 20-25% of all enterprise resources. I think we can actually start moving back up towards 50.
That'll be great. All those different distros essentially working together via this one point of communication, if nothing else. I mean, it's a bit weird to think of Oracle and Red Hat working together, but yeah. That's very positive. I'm glad to hear somebody saying positive stuff about CentOS Stream as well, because a lot of the comments I get about it on my channel are usually negative, and that's quite often because people are positioning it as a drop-in replacement for normal CentOS, what they now refer to as CentOS Linux to differentiate it, and it doesn't do that. It has a different purpose, and that doesn't mean it's bad. It's really good. It's just different. So it's good to hear that someone saying, "No, this is why it's good." That's really positive. Let me have a quick check through our questions, see what else we got coming in. Oh, guess who? Mystic Knight's got another one about edge computing. Let me pop up on the screen. What is the smallest Rocky configuration planned at this stage? Would that be the minimal installers or something else?
I'm going to call on Mustafa for this one.
We don't exactly have anything specific for edge computing right now, but we definitely think that it's important to start thinking about, especially since all the big distros have started to advertise for edge computing specific resources. But I think we need to work together with the other distros and CentOS Stream, and maybe just look into another SIG within the RESF. But it's something we definitely think about. Muted.
I just also add SIGs, the special interest groups. We have an embedded SIG, excuse me, as well as a cloud SIG. We've got a container SIG. I know that there are people currently doing Raspberry Pi work with Rocky. And again, all of this will hopefully come back into special interest groups, which will then become available to the community.
Okay, I'm glad you jumped in there because I forgot to unmute myself. Typical. That leads on to a question that got sent in by one of the viewers previously. I can't really pronounce the name without screaming because it was just, that's all their name said. And I'm not just taking the piss out of it. It literally just was lots of A's. But they'd asked about whether there be any alternative spins of Rocky, like things like a KDE version. Now, obviously, this wouldn't be a bug for bug with Red Hat type thing, but that's an interesting idea. Are you looking at doing something like that with the special interest groups, maybe?
Yep, exactly. So special interest groups will offer a variety of different types of functionality. We have a hyperscale one, a cloud one, as I mentioned, an embedded one. There's a high performance computing one, which, as you can imagine, I'm very interested in. And so what we will be doing in these special interest groups is really, there's a laptop SIG, there's a workstation SIG, a legacy SIG, a media and entertainment SIG, rendering SIG. So all of these SIGs are being discussed right now. Now, we decided that we were going to approach things a little bit more serially as specifically as it pertains to special interest groups. And we decided we really wanted to focus on getting everything stable and solid before we start going down the direction of special interest groups. And we have a couple more things that we're still on our roadmap that we'd like to get done. The big one is Secure Boot. So we're still working through Secure Boot, trying to get that done. And I know this wasn't one of your questions so far, at least, but it's really important for us, obviously, to get Secure Boot done. We've got a lot of advocates requesting Secure Boot. At this point, we're in a queue, like everybody else right now. We're in a queue to get this done, and it is just a holdup on other organizations, and we're just waiting for for our turn in the queue, basically. So once that gets done, we're really going to start engaging very heavily in special interest groups. Mustafa has done a ton of work on creating a build system or updating and modifying the build system such that we can very easily bring in special interest groups. Lewis on our team as well the Rocky team has also been doing a tremendous amount of work on this. And the infrastructure team. So everybody, we're in preparation right now for the special interest groups, but you are going to see fairly soon. And we may decide, just because we've been in a holding pattern for so long on Secure Boot, we may end up deciding just to start moving forward with special interest groups, and not wait for the Secure Boot, but give it another couple weeks, and we're going to kind of see how things play out. But I forget where I was going with this now. Special interest groups. Builds. There we go. Sorry. Sometimes I talk myself so long that I forget what my point was. So we are doing additional builds. So KDE desktops and whatnot, there has been a lot of interest in that. But I'm going to actually bring up something proactively, which is there's also work that we're doing on the CIQ side. So everything that I just mentioned is Rocky side, it's community. Now on the CIQ side, one thing about our business model is we don't hold anything back. We want CIQ to basically just help and facilitate Rocky, but we want Rocky and the Rocky Enterprise Software Foundation to go in whatever direction that the community needs it to go in. We're here to support the community. We're not here to control or influence the community in a negative way. We just want to help it. That's it. So from that perspective, we don't want to hold it hostage. Now, there is something that's coming down the pipe that we're working on right now, which is a commercial variant of it. And it's commercial variant predominantly because we're working with a commercial partner that created some amazing security benefits. And those pieces are not open source. Right, there is a commercial company. The name of the company is RunSafe, and they've been doing a phenomenal amount of work in terms of securing the applications that run on an operating system. And what we're doing is we're actually going to be bringing that together. And this is super important because as we're talking about additional builds and additional capabilities, excuse me, this is something now that we have engaged in a direct partnership with them to bring that application level security to the entire operating system. So imagine that, and real quick, what they are doing is they have found out a way to secure buffer overflows. And when I say secure buffer overflows, I mean that most software hacks, not all, but I'd say most, are actually coming in through something called a buffer overflow, which is a bug in software. What most people do then is they overflow this buffer, they put in some malicious code in the overflowed section of the buffer, and then they have a method to execute that through the application. What RunSafe has done is they have mitigated against that such that buffer overflows via malicious or escalations and hacks via malicious code using a buffer overflow is no longer possible. They can actually protect against every buffer overflow. So the code still has a bug. Don't get me wrong. The code may crash, but it will not result in exploited code. It will not or malicious code being executed. So we're going to take that capability and roll that directly into the operating system. So the whole operating system now is secured against buffer overflows. And that's one of the major things that we've got coming in. And again, that's going to be an entirely new build for Rocky through CIQ. Amy, I saw you go off mute for a second.
I was just wondering, I hate the blindside you hear, but I'm just going to do it. So how does that work with containers? Can you run RunSafe in a container?
Yes.
To extend the life cycle of a container?
Yes. It is. That's so amazing. Cool because there's it's not a kernel module even. It exists entirely in user space. So it doesn't protect against kernel exploits, but it does protect against application exploits. And in many cases, it's an application exploit that leads to a kernel exploit. So this
another tool in the arsenal, it sounds like to me. That's awesome.
Exactly. And it's some really cool capabilities. And yes, it will work inside of a container. So if you have a container that you have secured with Rocky++, which is what we're currently calling this, if you have a container that you've secured with that you've built your base container out of that, it doesn't matter where you bring that container, it's protected.
So you could run that on something that isn't Rocky and it keeps the inherited protection.
Exactly.
Also, could I just jump in regarding spins, because we actually have an official spins with some workstation and KDE images available in the repos, but it's not well advertised. We do talk about in the Mattermost chat, but we're working on getting that official and advertised as well. So we do have some spins already.
Cool. So if you're watching, it's out there. So that was a question I was going to ask you about the RunSafe stuff, because I saw the press release on it just after Brim had told me you were working on something that would make Rocky unhackable. So my question to Brim was like, have you ever heard of Murphy's Law, calling things unhackable? You didn't say that. So you said it gets rid of a lot of exploits, but buffer overflows, to be fair, are a huge number of them. Like that is a lot. My understanding of it, based on a quick Google of RunSafe and having looked through the material, was it's kind of like address space randomization on steroids, where if address space randomization is taking a book, ripping all the pages out of it and putting it in a different order, this is more like putting the entire thing through a shredder and say, try reassembling that. Is that a fair way to think about it?
Exactly. It's a really good way of looking at it. And every time you run the app, you're in a different randomized address space. So it doesn't follow like the application. Every single time it randomizes everything.
So it's always different. So if someone was trying to learn it, and then the next time it loads, it's different again.
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah, but the big thing too, Andrew, that kind of draws to it, it doesn't change the app at all, right? So at the same time, you don't have to write code to adjust what you're doing with your application.
So are there any compatibility things that you need to plan for, or is it just runs?
No, it just runs API, ABI, completely compatible, and no impact on performance. Now, from a high performance computing perspective,
wow.
There's impact on performance. It doesn't take much CPU time to quickly randomize the amount of stuff that it's randomizing. It's incredibly quick. But yeah, it's fast. Once you've invoked the application and you've had the bring up, it runs at pure native speed.
Right, because once it's in memory, then it's effectively done its job. That makes sense. Brim's watching. No bother. Had to rib you on that one. I mean, I'm sure you've seen what happened to NVIDIA when they called something unhackable. About a week later, they accidentally released a unsecured version of it that wasn't locked down. So it's you do that on the internet, you suffer the consequences. Let's have a look, see what else we've got in terms of questions from viewers then. There is one from Mystic Knight. I'm going to skip on that for now. I'll come back to that. I'm going to ask another one, which was, I'm going to reword it a little bit. So this one came in ahead of the stream, and originally it was asking whether you guys will be building like a beta version of Rocky from CentOS Stream. And personally, I can't see what the point of doing that would be. And if you want why would you rebuild a free rebuild of CentOS Stream when it's free anyway? And the whole point is it's bang up to date. So by the time you've rebuilt it, it won't be as up to date anyway. But on the idea of betas, how will you be doing that? Will it be Red Hat release the beta, you rebuild it as a Rocky beta, or it'll be Red Hat release the final version and then you build a beta based on that for testing.
Mustafa, do you want to take that one?
Sorry, I was a bit distracted. Could you just repeat the last bit?
Sure. So the question is about Rocky betas. Will the beta for, say, Rocky 9, will that be based on a Red Hat 9 beta, or will it be once Red Hat do the final release of Red Hat 9, you'll then build in your first build, and that will be a beta that comes out?
Okay, so currently, even though CentOS Linux will be end of life, Red Hat still publishes 8 version of all packages into a specific branch that we pull from. And we have talked to some Red Hat engineers that even though they will be moving to GitLab for RHEL 9, that they will continue, or at least try to continue to maintain that they will push to that branch. So we will mostly follow Red Hat or RHEL releases, and when we get access to new versions within that branch, which usually happens anytime Red Hat releases a beta or a new stable version, we will use that, if I understood the question correctly.
All right, I think that answers it, yeah. I should point out, actually, I've just realized it looks like this stream is sponsored by Guinness. It's not. I don't even like Guinness, but it's a good-sized mug. So coming back to Mystic Knight, then they had a question as well, which is about the governance model for Rocky. And someone give us a quick rundown of that.
Sure, I can jump into that. So Rocky started off basically being a, as you said at the beginning, Andrew, it was a comment to the blog post, and in addition to hey, I'm thinking of starting a new version of this, a new version of CentOS. It also said, come and join this Slack, and the Slack was HPCNG. And HPCNG is what Robert mentioned earlier, is the next generation of high performance computing that we've been really building out. And within probably an hour, all of a sudden we started noticing more and more people joining. Like, it first started with 10, then 20, then 100, and then it was like hundreds of people joining at a time. And in a very short amount of time, we topped 10,000 people, all joining this Slack. Now, I promise this gets into governance. Almost everybody was asking me directly and messaging me in Slack. How can we help? How can I help? What can I do? Now, normally, having people offer to help is fantastic and it's helpful. But having 10,000 people asking to help is and there's no way to properly address this, because every person is being an individual who's offering to help and wanting to be part of this. They don't want to be they don't want to hear that they're just one of 9,999 other people all ask they so I'm trying to literally, I was going through Slack. It would take me hours to go from one side of Slack up at the top and just scroll down, responding to everybody or trying to respond to everybody. But we actually got to the point where the free version of Slack only allows 10,000 messages. Well, when you have 10,000 people, 10,000 messages does not last long. So I actually knew in many cases, by the time I got to the bottom, names that I saw were no longer there because the messages I already dropped out of Slack. So I know that I lost a lot of stuff. There was LinkedIn messages, there was emails. I mean, everything was blowing off so what happened was, and here's how the initial governance was created, is people just started working. People just said, okay, I want to do this part and I'm going to start this. Some of those people just kind of kicked off certain initiatives. Other people started doing it. Other people started to help organize some of the things that were happening. And what kind of naturally kind of was created was a meritocracy, an ideal meritocracy, right? We don't know who any of these people are. In many cases, they have their real name, but in a lot of cases, there was some sort of weird, nickname that they were using. Most people didn't have time to put a picture or anything in there. So it was completely everything was based on a meritocracy. And whoever just kind of naturally rose to doing different jobs and different things, all of a sudden we started to filter up with a governance model, or I should say not governance, a management model. Now that management model identified a number of people who were kind of naturally leading certain initiatives within Rocky. And those people that were naturally leading those initiatives pretty much came out being kind of the head of the governance, or the really what we called team leads. But the team leads all filtered into this kind of board. Initially, we called it the board of advisors to Rocky. But what we're doing right now, and we're actually in the process of doing, is really finishing solidifying that and formalizing that. So we have RESF board, we're going to have Rocky board, and other sub boards in association with this. And we're actually right now in the process of developing all of that and building all of that out. So long story to basically say we're working on it. But hopefully it gives some additional context in terms of where we are now, how we got here, and hopefully where we're going with the fact that we're going to have boards, sub boards, and whatnot. And an interesting perspective is I'm actually going to, at least at this point, this may change, but at this point I've been really pushing for, I don't even want to vote. I would possibly be a tiebreaker, but I want the community to be voting on this. I want the community to be running this. So that's kind of how we're currently organizing this. So if there is something that ends up with a tie, if we end up having a even number of people, I'll probably end up just being a tiebreaker. But that's the governance model that we're kind of moving into. So hopefully all that makes sense.
Yeah, so a lot to work on there, and I'm just terrified at the thought of 10,000 messages coming through at once. Like, my inbox is bad enough, and I've been away on holiday for a couple of weeks. I don't want to even imagine what that's like. You must be a good speed reader to try and even get 50% of that.
Luckily, it wasn't really all 10,000 people. It was probably more like just half of that. Just 5,000.
Okay, well, perfectly manageable then. All right, if there's anyone wants any more questions, pop them in the chat. Otherwise, I'm going to start asking silly questions. I mean, they say there's no such thing as a silly question, but whoever said that hadn't met me. Let's see what we got. Okay. Current version of Rocky Linux is version 8. Now, that's a coincidence that I've noticed, is that there's also another Rocky series that has 8 installments at the minute, and that's the Rocky Balboa films. So the 9th of them, Creed 3, is apparently in the works. Red Hat are working on RHEL 9. So the question is, who's going to get to Rocky 9 first?
Oh, that's a good one. Mustafa, you want to take that?
I have no idea.
We are doing things to prepare for that, and some of the beta code and stream code is already out there. So we're going to be playing with that very soon, and hopefully starting to get ahead of it. I believe many of the contributors have already actually started working on this, started building packages and whatnot, coming up with everything from build orders to dependencies that are needed and whatnot. The goal, hopefully, is that the build system is going to do predominant amount of the work. We've built up a lot of that infrastructure to be able to pull directly out of the Git, the CentOS Stream Git, and be able to then just start building packages. And automating a lot of that. So that's our goal. So the goal is to just have all of this start to automatically get kicked off and just chug through.
Yeah, and also I'm just kidding. We have more tools now than we did when we first started out. When we first started out, we just had to it was just trial and error. Now we have specific tools for specific tasks regarding build orders, regarding release orders, all regarding even up to ABI compatibility level build order detection. And repo categorization, We have so much more now, and we're still working on making everything wholly automated regarding even though security errata, we have that now too. So we will have a better planning tools for RHEL 9 and Rocky 9 when RHEL 9 drops. So I would think that it will be a much shorter process than what we did when we first started out.
All right, good one. We've got a more serious question here from VRFXCo, asking about what else you guys are working on in CIQ. So you've talked about the RunSafe security thing, which is really interesting, but any other little gems you can let us in on?
Robert, do you want to take that?
Yeah, definitely, Andrew. Yes, to answer to the question directly, there is definitely things we're thinking about inside of to fill customers' needs when it comes to Rocky itself. However, regarding security itself, we have a full cryptographic signing methodology that applies all the way from the OS to deployments to the container to even a Helm chart, all the way to cloud deployments, all the way to on-prem deployments that we have actually built into our entire stack. So you'll be seeing more and more about that here shortly. We're working on some proof of concepts with some other partners that you could imagine would be a part of that CI process, and also some big customers that have asked us for that supply chain security of software. And so, yes, from the OS perspective, it matters to us, but all the way up the stack to running apps, running workflows, orchestrating data with the workflows, and getting people what they need so they can perform what they want to do, is securing that entire supply chain is what we're trying to do. I hope that makes sense.
I'm actually gonna drop a little bit of a bomb here. We haven't not publicly stated what we've been doing, because we've been kind of running this in stealth. There's not even any hints on our website really about what we've been working on and what we were founded to do. So I have a fully buzzword compliant description of what it is that we are doing. And I'm going to give the buzzwords, and everybody can kind of take it and take what they want out of it. But what we were founded to do is to modernize high performance computing. And in doing so, we learned that we're not only creating HPC 2.0, we're creating something much, much bigger. And I would describe it as it is a cloud native and cloud hybrid federated meta orchestration platform for doing all performance intensive workflows, services, and management of data. There's my buzzword compliance string. It basically allows organizations to go on-prem, multi-prem, cloud, multi-cloud, hybrid cloud, merge all of those together, and edge, and run jobs, workflows, services in a secure way, as Robert was describing, complete supply chain security and integrity across all of those different environments, and we can even encrypt it while it runs.
Yeah, but Andrew, to bring it back to the topic of the podcast, that doesn't happen unless you do a great job at the OS level, and that the libraries don't go to the container. It doesn't get cloud native without a great underpinning and a great base. And the RESF team, Mustafa, Greg, Amy, the rest of them have done just an incredible job, and all the maintainers of Linux, period. Right. So this is, we're grateful to all of them. So, we're just trying to honor their work and give it back to the community and something they can use that's productive for them. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. All right, I know you guys originally had a calendar invitation for half an hour, and we've just gone past an hour now, so I'll bring it to close with one last question, and this one's for Greg, and it is possibly the most important question of your life. So, no pressure. the previous
42.
distribution, the previous distribution you were known for, CentOS, and people have debated how to pronounce that over the years. Is it CentOS, CentOS, or CentOS? So,
Oh
Greg,
my goodness.
is it pronounced GIF or GIF?
Oh, it's, well, I'm American. I think it's GIF. I don't know if
That's
that has
good. I've had to
anything
kick
do
you
with
off if you said GIF, because that would clearly be wrong.
Okay, awesome, fantastic. No, I would argue with the inventor of the GIF format and say it's GIF.
Yeah, and with that, yeah, Mustafa's just sent a message. He agrees as well. Although he said he spelled it GIF, so we don't actually know what he means.
I thought you were going to ask me how to pronounce CentOS.
I know. I wanted to just lead you up the garden path a little bit, because I believe you rhyme it with Mentos, whereas I say CentOS. So thanks for not shouting at me, but I'm stuck in my ways. I'm not going to change.
Well, there's a really funny story about it, which is, when the name was first proposed to me by a contributor, I said, I love the name, but whatever you do, let's not make it like a union of two words. I forget what that's called right now. I'm blanking on what that is, but let's not make it a union of two words. Let's not make it Cent and then OS, because it is an OS, but the Cent part makes no sense. It's not a cent. It doesn't cost anything. Even though Cent is cheap, it's an infinite increase from nothing. So Cent makes no sense. So Cent OS doesn't make sense to me. But if you merge it, CentOS to me makes no difference. But CentOS is the one that just to this day still gives me the shivers. But I used to actually correct people. That shows you how immature I used to be. I used to actually correct people like it mattered in life, right? Like, no, that's not how you do it. This is how you do it. And but no, now however anybody wants to.
And just to be clear, Andrew, I was one he corrected. Just want to point that out.
But I did it really nicely.
Locked him in a dungeon until he agreed. The last quick one before we go. I know I said that was the last one. That was the last before the last one. VRFX, just follow up to his previous question, as asked when can they see that? So was, your supply chain thing.
It is currently an active proof of concepts at customer sites now. If people are interested in it, let them know where you heard about it. Because again, we have had a very, very limited release of this so far, just because we wanted to really iron out any sort of bugs, make sure the UIs and usability features are all great. But do reach out to us. You can reach out to me directly, Robert. You can reach out to info@ctrliq.com or ciq.co. Either one of those goes to the same place. But what we're doing is, so far we are in proof of concepts. We have people that are actively running this, and they are testing this. We do expect this to go out to market in phase 1 of GA, which is going to be not fully federated. It's going to be cloud and multi-cloud, but that'll be out by the end of this year. Probably November, December-ish time period. You're going to see some announcements around that. We're hoping to align it with supercomputing, but we may end up either going a little bit before or after that, but that's our goal.
Cool. So pretty soon, actually, all things considered.
Yeah, and the last thing I would mention is for support. I mean, if you're just interested in support, you can contact myself or Robert, and we're happy to walk through the different support packages, everything from nodes to people. So if there's listeners out there that are interested in Rocky support, we're happy to jump on the phone with you and give you those different options.
Cool. Just get in touch. Any questions, give you guys a shout. All right. Well, I'm going to wrap it up there. Thanks very much. I'll let you get back to your morning. I suspect you all need another cup of coffee by now.
Can I have a closing thought, Andrew?
You sure can, Greg.
Not like I haven't talked enough throughout this whole thing. But I do have a closing thought, which is, just to do what Todd said. If you do need any help, if you need any support, obviously, absolutely contact us. We're here for you. But I also want to say, if anybody's interested in being part of what we're doing with Rocky. We are better organized now. Message me, jump into the Mattermost, message me, message Mustafa, jump into the different channels, and just join us. It literally, it is like a constant party going on in Mattermost. There's always stuff happening. There's always discussions going on. And don't even get me going when we actually have our online parties. They're actually really, really fun. And Mustafa, it's time for us to, I think, have another one here in just a little bit. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. Come and join with what we're doing. Be part of the community. You're welcome to be a user where and to leverage everything we're doing, but come and join in. It's fun.
Yeah, and
That's
Robert
the best way
has
to
me
get
working
there.
since I started 5 days a week, covering US during the day and a me at night. So I get about 2 hours sleep. So you're welcome to contact me during your working hours.
Wait, you're only working 5 days a week? Robert, you're going way too easy on Todd.
We're here for you guys.
Yeah, and also I'm almost in the same time zone as Andrew, so you can contact me as well.
Cool. All right. Thanks very much. Thanks to all of you for coming on. It's been great to chat to you. I've had
Thank
fun.
you.
Hopefully other people have as well. I'll wrap that up and hopefully speak to you again soon. So
Thank you. You're a
very
great
much,
host, Andrew.
and
Thank you.
good morning, good night, whatever it is in your time zone.
Thank you, Andrew.
Okay.
Bye.